it was always like, where are you from? Where'd you go to school? What do you do for a living? And I was a bartender. So people was like, oh my God, you're only a bartender? Like, when are you going to get a real job? And I was like, then when like I had my son, I got to be with him all day long, and then I go to work at night and make a lot of money. And all my friends like were like, "Oh my God, daycare is so expensive." Like, not for me. Raise my own kid. So I just think that through my own path, doing what works for me, I realize it makes me happy. It's not what everybody else is doing, but maybe that's why I'm happy, because I don't do what everybody else does. Maybe everybody else has it wrong and they're unhappy because they're following that. I call it the book of bullshit. They're following like this journey that everybody else does, and they're kind of in a trap. And so I think for me, and also my son had learning issues at a young age. So I kind of realized that his path wasn't going to be the same as everybody else's. And I was kind of glad that I was his mom, because I don't really care to do what everybody else does. So for me, I had to just kind of like get my armor on and be able to defend every decision, because people will tell you that you're wrong. Like, oh my God, he doesn't play sports. I'm like, he doesn't like them. What am I going to put him in the middle of a baseball field and have him be like this, and I can sit there for 8 hours? What's the point? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why force a kid to do something that isn't for them? Mm-hmm. But he was really into trains and Legos, so I went all in on Legos. And then people are like, you spent so much on Legos. I'm like, and how much did you play in hockey? You know what I mean? Hockey's $5,000. This is my hockey. You know, so for me, I just learned to play to my son's strengths. And then I just kind of learned to kind of enjoy him as who he was and let him just develop. And if you play to your kids' strengths, you know, they'll do better than focusing on their weaknesses.
All right, and we're recording. So, Kristin, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to chat today. And as soon as I came across who you were, I was instantly drawn to you. Not just because the geographical, aspect of us sharing that similar perspective of Massachusetts and you being closer to Boston than I was on the Cape, but just your language, just your energy, your perspective, and all those things. And I'm really thankful to have this opportunity. So I want to formally welcome you to the podcast, and I just appreciate you taking the time.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I always love having conversations. I think conversations are one of the best things about life. And for being a bartender for over 20 years, it's my favorite thing to do, is just talk to people and talk about topics and conversations. So it's just kind of anytime I have the opportunity to talk to somebody, I love it.
Awesome. Well, I know you had me on an Instagram Live. I know you do those Wednesdays and Fridays. You do an Instagram show?
I do. The Instagram Live is Wednesdays. And then Fridays, I try to do a funny rant. I take different news stories, and I just kind of do a little funny bit just to kind of put people in a good mood for the weekends, because it's been a heavy year. So I try to bring, that's kind of more the sassy side of me. I have a couple different sides of Kristin. So sassy, funny, introspective, passionate, inspirational. So it depends on the day.
Yeah, no, I love it, and I resonate with all of that, and that's something I appreciate with you. Is we were just talking about before we started recording was, this year especially, you've come to, I would summarize what we were saying, like having more empathy for other people, but focusing on more than just yourself, and that's something I see with you, having conversations as a bartender, or you doing stand up now, like all these things, and just creating your own content, is because you're wanting to connect with other people and relate with other people. And something I keep hearing this year that just drives me crazy, because it conflicts with every belief I have about life today, is, 2020 sucks. And it's like, well, I believe that's a choice. I also believe that 2020 is no different than 2019, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
On the macro, we're all humans. We're all fighting the uphill battle of death one day. Like it's you can't argue, like, we're always aging, like from the time we're born. Right. But on the micro, 2020 looks very different, and it affects a global effect of people in a conscious perspective, because the other things are always there that maybe we put off as autopilot. It's just all right. But with 2020, 2020 sucks makes me cringe. So I want to get your perspective on 2020. Okay. What positive has come out for you, and then just how you've taken this time to pour into other people.
I love it. So 2020 has been a very interesting year for a lot of people. I think for a lot of people say it sucks because there's a lot of uncomfortable things happening. And I think it's been a long time before people have really been punched in the face or knocked down. So I think it's a different experience for different people. In the beginning of 2020, I don't like to do a resolution. I like to do a statement for my year. And my statement for 2020 was positivity and productivity. And boy, I didn't know how much that was going to be needed for this year. So I had a love-hate with 2020 in certain ways. 2020 started off really great for me. I started getting a lot of shows, doing comedy. I started really kind of coming into my own, getting some really cool experiences. A lot of really great things were happening to me. And then when this shutdown came, it kind of I was like, all right, now I know what to do. I've been knocked down before. Let me see if I can kind of help people pull themselves through, because I didn't think it was going to last as long as it did. So I think that's why now everyone's like, fuck this year, just because it's just been so long. I think a lot of people can be a good spirit. A lot of people can be like, all right, I can get through this. But once you get past the 6-month point, I think that's why a lot of people really starting to really like, okay, now what are we going to do? For me, myself, being an empathetic person, I had a lot of really cool experiences. I got to have a conversation with Gary Vee. He convinced me to do a show. I started doing the show. The show got me back connecting to people because I'm a people person. And taking people away from me is like, it's like taking away my energy, you know, it's like taking away like my superpower. So that was really hard. But then having the show really kind of connected me to so many great people. So that goes back to my high again. I had really cool conversations, like people like you, so many different guests. I've made so many great friendships with that show. So it's actually been a really great experience actually being there for other people and trying to help them get through it. And now I'm kind of at this thing that I'm kind of like, all right, everybody, what are we going to do? Because I don't really feel like there's an end in sight for people. So I feel like people are now starting to really get like a little bit helpless and hopeless again. So I'm kind of like, all right, now what can we do? And what are we going to, how can we help everybody? Because you could be a strong-willed person, you could be a positive person, you could be a motivated person, but I think there's certain pockets of different areas or populations that aren't being allowed to do their job. So I'm like, how do you inspire that person to stay positive when they're literally not allowed to do what they're supposed to do? I think that's what I'm kind of being a little bit more empathetic about right now. I'm kind of worried about those people because I sympathize with them. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And that's have you heard the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey?
No, I haven't, but now I'm going to have to write that one down.
There's 7 habits, and I believe it's the 5th one. The title is Seek First to Understand, Then to Be Understood. And I think that's something that's resonated with me a lot this year, is because when you can understand other people and really see where they're coming from, doesn't matter what kind of advice you have, if you don't have the understanding, if you don't empathize with them, and maybe don't get associated with their feelings, but like really understand them, you know, you may have the answers to their problems, so to speak, but if you can't understand them and relate with them, then it's going to be useless. And so for me, it's just been the same thing. It's just like, all right, like I love communicating with people. I never thought I'd be on this platform of just like, oh, people want to talk with me and I want to talk with them. Like, cool, let me use my voice. But when I can understand people, it allows me to frame things that otherwise maybe I would have framed it wrong, where it just would have gone in one ear without the other.
I love that. It kind of reminds me of, I always say shoe on the other foot. That's my mentality. I'm always like, you know, like when I'm bartending, I'd be like, okay, this person sits down, they kind of have a bad attitude. Is it because they're just an asshole, or are they having a bad day, or is there something I can help them with? So I always try to say, what is this person's problem? And how would I be if I went through that same problem? So I've always tried to come from that point of view, like trying to look at everybody from like, what is their experience? And I think it's an interesting mindset, because when you try to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, I think you're a little bit more empathetic. You learn a little bit more, and then you learn about a lot of different things, because you'd be like, wow, I didn't realize that was your experience. Oh, I didn't realize you lost your job today. I didn't realize you buried your best friend. You know, so I think if we take the time just to be like, wait, why is this person acting this way, or why is this person having this situation? It gives you a little bit of a better understanding for people, and you can actually help more people that way by trying to think a little bit more like them or understand where someone's coming from. So I love that. I think that's I think it's a powerful thing. And I don't think we do enough of that. I think this year especially, people have been so dug in on so many topics that they're totally losing that. You know, so like if you go to say something about one topic and everybody believes this, and you want to just kind of open up a dialogue about this, they're like, they just attack you before stopping and listening to what you're saying and say, wait, I didn't think of it from that point of view, because everyone's just on their point of view right now. So I think that's really fascinating, Josh. I love that.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree. I think the polarization of everything in life today, I mean, have you seen the documentary, The Social Dilemma?
No, people have told me about it, and I actually don't have Netflix. And it's funny because I have to watch it, and I know a lot of what it's going to say, because there was something else I watched a while back, and I know when they made this social media, they knew what it did. And you can see it, because you can't put this damn thing down. Like, you'll be like, why am I checking? What am I looking for? What am I looking for? So I think it is fascinating, but I want to watch it, because you're like the third person that says I have to watch it.
It was the same for me. It was a couple of weeks. People just, hey, have you watched it yet? Have you watched it? And then I got encouraged, like, hey, you got to watch it because we want to do a roundtable with the four of us, but you need to watch it to have context.
Right.
But one of the things they talk about is the polarization due to social media and people having voices that otherwise wouldn't before, and being more comfortable to have a voice. And then you have these people ignorantly following just what this person says because they trust them, and that's a part of communication, is trust. And then you see these issues. What I see is stress, where people are like, no, I'm not going to take in that information because they're in a stressful state, so their focus is narrowed, and it's like, oh, that conflicts with my beliefs, and people get in that defense mode, and they don't want to open up. And I know for me, it took my journey with health and injuries and things like that to really open my mind to be like, oh, there could be other ways to do things, to live life in a better manner. And that's just something I'm seeing. And to your point, I think it's just the polarization of fear and stress is allowing us to not connect and to empathize. And for people like yourself, I see so much transparency and authenticity, and you always have high energy, but you're not afraid to share the shit. Like you're not, it's just, you don't use social media as a catalog of your wins and positive moments. It's everything. It's you get Kristin being Kristin.
Right. It's funny because last weekend when I do my posts on Fridays, I do a funny video. And I really didn't feel funny last Friday because they rolled back a bunch of restrictions. The industry I've been in for 20 years that I love, bartending in restaurants, has been completely destroyed in Massachusetts. And I was frustrated last week because we were filming a movie in Boston. And I'm like, okay, we're filming a movie in Boston, but people that love here can't do their jobs. That is such hypocrisy. And I felt so angry, and I was like, I try to do a funny video, but I kind of came off a little bit ranty, and it actually sounded so much like what David Portnoy of Barstool Sports said. I was like, oh my God, like we had like the same video on the same day. So I said, you know what, I'm just gonna hold on to it for a minute. I just need to digest like my feelings, and I like to try to like when I'm in kind of an agitated state, I try to like process it and try to say how's the best way for me to express this to people so that people can understand where I'm coming from. And maybe have an open dialogue instead of being like, oh my God, I can't believe you said that. That's being so mean. Because people just don't understand. Sometimes when you're ranting, you're just trying to make people like think differently, open their brain, open a dialogue.
Poke them a little bit.
Or just poke them a little bit, right? They're like, listen, you're not supposed to judge. And I'm like, it's not judging. It's making some humor. It's just making a comparison sometimes. Because sometimes you need to kind of make a comparison to open up the conversation, because people are really just like thinking about it from one point of view. Like for instance, my owners decided to shut their bar down after 12 years for the winter because we just could not continue going. And when my owner made a video, like a post about it, somebody attacked him saying, well, this is a pandemic. And I was like, listen, we know it's a pandemic. He's speaking from his point of view. You're speaking from your point of view. I don't think if you opened your own business and you had to close your business and put all of your people on the unemployment line who are like a family, it's like breaking up a family. We are on the front lines too. We are there to help people be able to process this shit. So the reason I talk about this shit is because I listen to this shit from other people and I know how they're feeling. So I'm kind of like, hey, everybody, people are really struggling right now. And I don't really hear anybody talking about it. Like I hear like, we're in this together and keep pushing forward and we can do this. But I don't hear people saying like, I hear you, I understand you, and it's okay to feel that way. And I know it feels like it's hopeless right now, but it's gonna get better. And I just feel like you can have both conversations with that. That's what I'm kind of getting upset about. Like you can't talk about the effects of small businesses or certain industries because people think that you're being you're not being compassionate to the pandemic. And I'm like, well, you can be compassionate about both because it's affecting people on both sides. Whether people are dying or in a hospital or people are killing themselves, people are struggling. So that's just where I'm kind of like feeling like this pressure right now.
Yeah, and I think I love that you share your truth no matter what, because something that was profoundly shared, or that was shared with me a couple of years ago was like, we're not responsible for the way other people think, feel, or act. Mm-hmm. We're responsible for how we show up. And if our intentions are to, be thought provoking and like poke someone in the form of getting them to think differently and outside of the comfort zone, we're not responsible for their emotional baggage that they're carrying. And for me, this year especially, so to speak, checking my emotional baggage and really getting clear with it and accepting it has allowed me to understand other people more, but not react, but like actually process what I have going on and ask myself, why is this agitating me? Like, why am I angry right now? And then respond accordingly. And obviously I'm not proud of every moment because I'm a human being and like we're always flawed, but more so than not, I've done a good job at least trying to understand someone because like you said, said, it's like everyone has their own perspective, their own reality. That's like the famous question, how many worlds are there? And there's like, well, there's one Earth, but there's billions of different worlds because we all see it differently. And I think the more that we can understand, everyone's got some shit going on, but like, where are you coming from? Because this is where I'm coming from. One of my favorite questions is actually a YouTuber out of Boston. He has a radio show as well, David Pakman. And I just getting into politics this year, I found his channel. And one of the first things I watched, he was like, all right, cool. So like the way I address people with all different types of political views is like, all right, that's cool. How did you come up with that conclusion?
Yes, I love that.
Because here's my belief and here's how I came up with it. So tell me how you, because he's like at the very core, you'll find some common ground that you can work from. And I think just asking that type of question is like, all right, what do you got going on? Like why is it you see the world this way? Because here's how I see it, but like, here's what I've gone through.
I love that because one of the things that I've always done, because I've always been interested in even politics since I was very young, I'm a free thinker. I just love pushing myself out of my boundaries. And I hate that people think because I'm a woman or I'm from a certain place, I'm supposed to think or feel everything a specific way. Yeah, I'm a woman, but I'm also a tomboy. I'm a mom. I'm a wife. I'm old school. I have a lot of different qualities of me as a female that I might not be on the same level as other females. So a lot of times I don't really see eye to eye with a lot of women. And they kind of look at me like when I do my comedy sometimes like, oh my God, she makes her husband a sandwich? I'm like, yeah, I fucking do it. He does laundry. Like, it's called the teamwork, And so to me, I would say I don't judge or vote or do things the way that people think because of what I look like. I go by where I feel on something. If I want to understand a topic, I'll listen to 3 different voices, or I'll listen to people that I completely don't agree with and people I do agree with. And then I'll digest it and I'll sit and like think about it and say, okay, Kristin, where does Kristin feel on this topic? Where do you stand on this and why? And then that's where I go with my gut. I go with where I stand as a human. Like for me, integrity and being myself and being true to myself is number one. And I don't care if that doesn't go with you or go with you. And one of the things that I think is so fascinating about this year is that everybody thinks that everything's one way. And I'm like, I don't know if you know this, but we're all individuals.
Yep.
This is crazy. I know we all have a brain and we all have different life experiences. And like, for instance, I'll take one simple example. I'm from Boston. Hunting's not that popular here. Okay. So we might think that's completely like, barbaric, but then my husband's family grew up in Pennsylvania, rural Pennsylvania. Now, first day of deer season is a holiday. Kids don't go to school because that's how they actually feed their families for the winter. So it just shows you how different the world is depending on where you're from. And I think that we've really lost that, especially I think social media makes everybody, they see things so frequently and everybody tries to do the same thing that they're getting fed one story. And they don't know how to say, oh, well, is there other stories out there? Oh, I didn't realize that. So I think that's what people don't realize. And I think that's how you grow, by listening to different opinions and listening and having conversations. And I love that. That's such a great statement. Like, how did you
come up with that conclusion?
I love that because that makes you, it goes back to like, are you repeating something that somebody else said? Or did you actually do the work and research and find it on your own way? You know what I mean? I love that. That's so great.
And there was a big realization for me to understand that I was just regurgitating things that aligned with the things that I thought or believed in before. And then when I was challenged with facts that disproved my belief, I was like, this is a really weird position to be in. Now I have to admit I was wrong to myself and others, and then learn and then progress. And I think that's just the beauty of a human being. And some of the doctors I look up to in the metabolic health world, they admit they're like, we're scientists. What we know now is what is factual to us now. But I will go on and say in 5, 10, even 1 year from now, we could learn more that will change this entirely. But for now, this is what we know. And I'm willing to be wrong because this is helping people now. And later on, we could find something better, or that this could be long-term no good. So it's just about being accepting of yourself. And when you're right or wrong, just accept it and then learn, because that's the way you're going to grow and be able to ultimately contribute.
If you're not learning and you're not opening your brain to other ideas, you're not growing. You're stagnant. You're staying someplace. And that's why I'm a big dreamer. I'm always like, go big or go home. Like, I don't care if I've done so many crazy things just because I think, why can't I? And instead of just saying, well, that's crazy, everybody says, that's crazy, Kristin. I've heard that so many times of people. And then I always laugh because it happens. I'm like, haha, it's so crazy, but I fucking did it. You know what I mean? Like, I remember when I wanted to get on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I was like, oh, what's an easy way to make money fast? Get on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. It was crazy, Kristin. Who's going to get on that show? And I got on it. I mean, I only won $15,000, but I still got on it. So I said to people, I'm like, haha, within 6 months I was on, you know? So like when I started doing comedy, people were like, what do you mean you're going to do comedy? And then I only had 3 minutes to do stand-up, and I wanted to do a one-woman show. I'm like, maybe someday I'm going to be on Netflix, like visualize it. So I put on a one-woman show. People were like, gosh, you're doing a one-woman show? You've only been doing comedy for like 3 months. I'm like, yeah, but we'll just see what happens. So the thing is, I just try things, and I learn, and then I'm kind of like, oh, that didn't go well, or that did go well. Or so just like, if you have that desire to try things, you're going to live. And I don't like not living. So that's one of the things I'm struggling with 2020, the amount of fear that's being pushed on people. I don't like fear. I like caution. But I don't like fear, and I'm kind of worried about that because fear is just not good for my, it's not good for my energy. It's not good for my soul, because I believe that you have to be cautious, but you shouldn't be afraid. I've never been afraid, so it doesn't work for I just don't get it, you know? So that's what's been a hard thing for me.
Yeah, and to me, I mean, I'm really biased on fear. I love the topic of fear. I mean, I have it tattooed across my arm. Fear is a thought. Thoughts can be changed. But
I love that.
to me, fear is a
Put that on
stress
my arm
response.
now.
Fear is a stress response, and stress in
Yes.
chronic levels is not good for our body in any which
No.
way. Energy, health, metabolism, disease, like all that. So it makes
Yes.
sense to be cautious, to be aware, but
Mm-hmm.
not to be focused on what ultimately you don't want to happen. And
Yes.
something you said that's really powerful is like thinking big, thinking outside the box, thinking, the biggest that you can, because it opens the door to possibility rather than confining yourself to what's real or what's your reality based on your circumstances, which so
Uh-huh.
many of us do. And I mean, I know you know a little bit about me, like breaking through that to become a professional BMX athlete. Like, of
Right.
all the people that thought that'd be possible to make a living out of that for like 10 plus years as a 17-year-old, like that's because I thought bigger than what people were telling me, what all the evidence of my reality
Yes.
was. I thought
Right.
beyond that, and that you're doing that. So to me, it just makes sense that one day you'll have a Netflix special or something even better than that. It just makes sense because the way you think, and you're taking
Right.
action on that. More importantly, you're not just meditating on it. You're
Right.
you're you're meditating on it, and you're acting on it, and you're doing
Mm-hmm.
that. And it looks a little different than what you'd want in 2020, of course, but you're doing it, and that's just going to progress from there. And
Yeah.
what I wanted to ask on this, I actually, like I said before, I had a couple formal
Yeah.
questions, but
That's
we're
fine.
already getting to them. But I just want to ask, like, about this mindset. Like, for me, I had a event that led to a chain of events that opened me up to the way I think today and the way who I am. Did
Mm-hmm.
you have a very, like, I'd say profound pivotal moment or chain of moments that led you to this perspective today? Because like you said, you play a lot of roles in your life, but
Yeah.
I would imagine that there's something that consciously shifted how you think today, which leads to how you act.
Yeah, this is crazy because it happened really young for me. So I feel like a lot of people have the pivotal moment in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, the light bulb moment. I'm kind of an old soul, and it happened when my parents got divorced in first grade. It's almost like a lightning bolt hit me, and I saw the way the world works. We went from a big house to like a small 2-bedroom apartment in a working class neighborhood, and I came from an affluent community. And I realized that there was a class structure right off the bat. And I was like, oh shit, people can't come to my house, but I can go to their house. Ah, I get how that works. And I just decided right then and there, I wasn't going to care what people thought. Because to me, I already felt like they're already going to judge you. If they're going to judge me by my zip code or where I live, then they're going to judge me by so many things. So what's the point of even trying to fit in the box? And so that was like the first pivotal moment for me. And then my mom was just really good at like saying, watch the beat of your own drum. She hated followers, and she was really about integrity. Like she hated liars and cheats. So she just had like this strong moral fiber. So she would just say things to us like, be a good person and make the choices that you want to, do what you want to do, but you have to live with the choices. So to have that mindset from a very young age, I just kind of realized that my power was in myself. And then in third grade, when I won this raffle at my school, I just believed that I could make anything happen with my mind. Like, it's just so crazy. But that little thing that happened for me just made me convinced that why can't I do anything I want to do? I just thought that I literally had a superpower. So I actually kind of like, I guess I've been living by like The Secret or any of those like positive affirmations or believe, achieve since I was a little girl. It wasn't that I read a book about it. It was just little things happened in my earlier years that kind of developed like this little free thinking, like pit bull, I don't know. And that's just how I kind of lived. So that's where it came from. And then I would say in my later years, I just had a couple different life experiences that were difficult. And I just had to kind of tap into that, like, okay, like I thought, oh, I'm so strong, I could take anything, knock me down, I get back up. And then after like the 10th time of getting knocked down, I'm like, okay, I've had enough. Like, fucking give me a break because I can't take any more. So I think that's another reason that I feel the need to kind of pull other people with me. because I know what it feels like to lose everything and just kind of get wiped out and feel like I can't get up. And so that's, to me, those are the things that kind of made that mindset for myself.
Yeah, and I think that's why we resonate so well, because when you get knocked down over and over again to the point where, you're rock bottom, so to speak, it shows you who you really are and how strong you really are. And then going back to your earliest memories of this mindset shift, it's really believing in something that you can't yet see, which is what I believe faith is. It's what you can't see, but like, and that's what you're working towards. It's a vision in your mind rather than your circumstances. Because, we could have given up multiple times, but there was something stronger in our mind we were working towards. And, you talked about the secret law of attraction, and like over the years, me really like distilling that to a neurological perspective and like the science behind it, it comes down to these unconscious programs. And so if you believe something at a young age, that's going to lead your unconscious mind is going to lead you to behaving based on these values, these beliefs, these opinions, and these just views of life. That's going to put you in the opportunity to have the experiences that you want, that you're focused on, rather than the opposite. Because if you believe life happens to me, it's always a struggle, all this bullshit, like you're going to see that over and over again unconsciously until you wake up one day and you're like, oh shit, what do I want to be true about my life? How can I act that way? And on that note, I can't recommend this book enough, but the book Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Oh yes, like the third person.
It's probably my favorite book I've read in recent years, because he just talks about habits and identity versus outcomes in such a simple manner. He's very well versed in neurolinguistic programming, the unconscious, subconscious, but he talks about the reason why people fail in life when they're trying to just focus on an outcome, because that leads to a little bit of the middle ground, the systems, the processes, the action. But that very little of that actually hits the core, the identity, or the why, the who is driving the. So if you can focus on what the type of person you want to become, the way you think, feel, behave, and the type of life you have as a natural consequence, go all in on that, take action, because your target's set on a goal and outcome. That's where the magic happens. And that's something that you and I think, experienced at a young age. But something you said that was even more profound in my mind is like, you want to help other people do that too. And that's the definition of success to me. It's not what I used to think about money or this job, this career. It's like, I'm getting to a point where I'm happy, I'm winning, so to speak. And I want other people to do the same, because I'm in this for the collective. And it took a third brain tumor for me to understand my purpose was higher than just BMX. That was selfish, and not in a negative context, but like, I could only think that box. And then I was like, oh, I could do more with this. And that's what I've created a business out of, speaking and coaching today, is helping people win. And that's what I think the ultimate form of success is. And I'm so happy to hear that you said that.
I completely agree, because I think there's a lot of words that we use. There's a lot of buzzwords in our society and on social media that people use, like be kind. It's like, but are you really being kind? You know what I mean?
And are you being kind to yourself?
Yeah,
too? That's
a huge thing. The other day I said, if you're not kind to yourself, what does it matter if you're doing for anybody else? Because if you didn't take care of you first, you don't have anything to give to somebody else. The same thing in a relationship. If you think another person is going to fix your shit, they're not. Like, so you have to fix your own stuff, because in a relationship, you're going to just project on that person. Like, they can't fill the void in you. So a lot of people that have that empty hole because there's something missing in them that they have to get to the root of, another person's not going to fix that for you. You have to fix yourself first, and then they're going to compliment you. So there's just so many things that people get caught up in. So success is another one that I love, because so many people have it so twisted. They think happiness is like stuff or a place, when it's an internal feeling of like knowing, like kind of self awareness. In my opinion, that's what happiness is. You know who you are, you know what works for you, and you keep doing it. It just keeps bringing the good to yourself. And then I think people think success is like the jet, the house, the this, the that. And I'm like, I don't have any of that shit, but I think I'm super successful. I'm like, I might just be a bartender. Right now I'm serving flapjacks in the morning because I can't bartend. So then I went back to restaurants, and I kind of like it, because in the morning, everyone's in a good mood. So I'm like, good morning, here's your coffee. And it's been like kind of a cool little thing for me, because it was almost like a step back in a way, but it was kind of exciting in a way, because it kind of fired me up a little bit. You know what I mean? So I was kind of like, all right, my thing got taken away from me. What do I know how to do? I know how to serve. I know how to take care of people. I can still communicate with people on a day-to-day basis. So that's what I did. And to me, I think success is really just living the life that you want to live by your own kind of core values. And if you can be happy doing what you do, I think you're successful. And I think if people could just make that switch that mindset, they'd be so much happier, or feel much better about where they're at.
Yeah, I love that last part, because I think that's truly what success is being happy and being congruent with the ideal version of your life, like acting that way and experiencing it. Maybe you're not where you want to be eventually. You don't have the things you want or the bank account or the business,
Right.
or you're not at a certain progression level, but you're
Right.
on track. And I think
Yes.
that's everything. And I think it's something to become, I think, really cliche today. Gary Vee made it very popular. It's like you fall in love with the journey. And like it really took deep reflection on my past and my career as an athlete and then as a human being of like there is no end destination. Like it's like
Right.
humans are hardwired to progress. We're fueled by gratification, satisfaction, or what's the word actually? Accomplishment. Like we're fueled on
Right.
that momentum. So it makes so much sense to fall in love with the journey. But until you really open your mind to all the things you've learned and experienced because of all the shit, all the times you fell down, it's going to be near impossible to actually
Yeah.
understand that statement for more than what you see on the surface.
100%. And I think that I don't know. I just think it's interesting to just try things and just be nice. Like when going back to being kind to yourself, like give yourself a pat on the back. Like, did you get out of bed this morning? Good for you, because it's not always easy for me to get out of bed. Like that's one of the reasons when I think about kind of where I want to go with like helping people. I kind of feel like I'm more reality based, where a lot of other programs are kind of like do this, do that, do that. I'm like, God, man, that's a lot of pressure just to get out to do all those things by 8 o'clock in the morning. That's overwhelming to some people, you know. So to me, I'm more like, hey, good for you, you got up. Good for you that you showed up. You know what I mean? And like just little incremental steps. You know what I mean? And then you can work on the bigger things. Just start small.
Yeah, it says what's one thing that would make today a win, make today a success? What's one thing that you could do to get to the next level? And it could be getting the fuck out of bed. And I know for me, I've
Yeah.
been in a lot of points where I was super depressed, where it
Right.
took me 2 hours of being awake to get out of bed.
Yeah.
And so I know that struggle, but like acknowledging like, hey, I got out of bed. I could have just stayed in bed. I could have
Right.
just pity party, oh, woe is me.
Yes.
Like, but I got out. It's like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's do that consistently. Then like build from there. Like in this
Yeah.
morning, I've been working on a lot of like post concussion symptoms with like hormones and stuff like that. And sleep's been a big struggle for me the last 10 years, and it's been getting
Mm-hmm.
better. But now I've been finding myself waking up at 5:30 automatically like wired. And usually I'll force myself to go back to sleep for another hour and a half, or an hour before my alarm goes off at 6:30. And today I was just like, man, like I do that and then I feel worse the next hour when I wake up. I feel like groggy because I get back in that sleep cycle. So this morning I was like, let's just
Get up.
start, just get up, like just get up and go watch YouTube or go do something. And I
Right.
did that and I felt good and I had a great work. I usually work out first thing in the morning and I had a great workout.
Awesome.
And that's just like me rewiring the
Mm-hmm.
programs in my mind to do something different. And that's a win. Like, and
Yep.
James talks a lot about that in Atomic Habits. Don't set the goal to go to the gym 5 days a week for an hour. Set the goal to just get to the gym. If you
Yes.
can get to the gym and walk in from there on, it's
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Because you build that identity. You cast a vote towards the type of person you want to become. That becomes a part of your identity. The
Yes.
actions and the outcomes occur after that. And so I think that's huge. It's like if the only thing you can find a win in is just getting out of bed and trying, cool. Celebrate
Yeah.
that. Be aware of
Yeah.
that though.
Right. Pat yourself on the back and then say, hey, tomorrow I'm going to do it again. And, you know what I mean? Build from
Because the
there. I
sad
think,
reality is not many people have the ability or the reality to actually get out of bed or to wake
right.
up. And
Yeah.
I know that's like a common thing is like, oh, perspective, like you're winning because you're
Right.
alive. But like when you actually think about that,
Yeah.
like, not everyone wakes up. Not everyone can
Right.
get out of bed on their own.
Yeah.
Like that's a huge perspective shift.
And I think also like right now too, people's schedules are off. So like that's what I'm thinking about from the 2020 point of view. So many people's schedules are off. They're working from home. Like their whole routine, like maybe your gym isn't open right now where you go, and that was part of your day-to-day routine. So this is taking a lot of other people to totally reprogram their routine. Like people imagine, like I know I look at a lot of parents that their kids play 3 sports and they're running around, and it's not my schedule. We've never been that type of family, luckily, but I kind of like to free fall. I don't like all this stuff on my calendar. It overwhelms me. That's just me. Other people they like that. Everybody has a different way, and that's what I think is important for people to realize. But for me, there's so many people that don't have that. Like these kids don't have 4 sports to go to, so a lot of people are like, whoa, what the hell is going on? They're in uncharted territory. You know, like they're used to going, and now like they're stuck home. So I think that's why right now it's really important for a lot of people to kind of sit down and like reevaluate or kind of like be okay, well, I can't do my traditional routine, let me set a new routine. And that's going to at least help them right now, because it's trying for a lot of people, you know. So that's
Yeah,
short.
yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think that's huge for this year. It's like, well, a lot of people are in uncomfortable circumstances, but
Mm-hmm.
also they're in an environment that they're usually not in. Like, and it's something to think about. Like, students in school, you're there for like 8 hours a day, depending on if you're in high school or
Mm-hmm.
college. You're working 8 hours a day, just on average. So like you're spending so much time away from home and away from the people that you actually share life with. And then when
Right.
you're forced to be in your home environment to work and be around one another, then you're starting to like relearn how to live with one another or live on
Right.
your own in that environment. And I think that's something that's really tricky. And something else I wanted to mention was, you speak profoundly different than a lot of mothers out there, and I really love that, and I really appreciate that. And you lead a very different life. And I
Right.
want to ask, you kind of already alluded to it, but like, what stands out to you in terms of like why you just don't seem to give a fuck and you care about people, but you will do what you want, especially when it comes to supporting your children.
I think it's because I realized at a young age that, God, Boston, I don't know, for me, Boston's very judgy. So it was always like, where are you from? Where'd you go to school? What do you do for a living? And I was a bartender. So people was like, oh my God, you're only a bartender. Like, when are you going to get a real job? And I was like, then when like I had my son, I got to be with him all day long. And then I go to work at night and make a lot of money. And all my friends like were like, oh my God, daycare is so expensive. Like, not for me. Raise my own kid. So I just think that through my own path, doing what works for me, I realize it makes me happy. It's not what everybody else is doing, but maybe that's why I'm happy, because I don't do what everybody else does. Maybe everybody else has it wrong and they're unhappy because they're following that. I call it the book of bullshit. They're following like this journey that everybody else does, and they're kind of in a trap. And so I think for me, and also my son had learning issues at a young age. So I kind of realized that his path wasn't going to be the same as everybody else's. And I was kind of glad that I was his mom, because I don't really care to do what everybody else does. So for me, I had to just kind of like get my armor on and be able to defend every decision, because people will tell you that you're wrong. Like, oh my God, he doesn't play sports. I'm like, he doesn't like them. What am I going to put him in the middle of a baseball field and have him be like this, and I can sit there for 8 hours? What's the point? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why force a kid to do something that isn't for them? But
Mm-hmm.
he was really into trains and Legos, so I went all in on Legos. And then people are like, you spent so much on Legos. I'm like, and how much did you play in hockey? You know what I mean? Hockey's $5,000. This is my hockey. So for me, I just learned to play to my son's strengths. And then I just kind of learned to kind of enjoy him as who he was and let him just develop. And if you play to your kids' strengths, they'll do better than focusing on their weaknesses, and they're all going to have their strengths and weaknesses. So for me, it's not that I don't give a fuck. I just know that people in general are just going to judge, and people in general are going to want you to do what they're doing because it makes them feel better. So if
Yeah.
you can just
Yeah.
let go of that pressure, it takes the pressure off yourself, and then you're kind of living your life, not theirs. And I think that's where everybody's big mistake is.
Yeah, and that's what I meant about not giving a fuck. It's like giving a fuck about
Yeah.
what other people think of you and how you live
Right.
your life, how you
Yeah.
raise your children. And because
Whatever.
my mom raised me the same way, like that's
Right.
why I became a world class athlete in BMX
Right.
of all things. Like because she just let me do what I enjoyed. It started with baseball and little league, and then moved into basketball. I had this idea I was going to go to college. I was going to go to UNC because Michael Jordan went there. I was going to be in the NBA. Me being 5'8", 5'9", probably wouldn't have worked out
It'll
so
work.
well. But then when I was about 13, BMX came really profound in my life, and I was just like, oh, this is so fun. I can go to my friend's house, or I can go ride
Yeah.
in the dirt. I can go on the ramps. And because she supported me, she actually supported me even further of dropping out of high school to go pursue this
Love
career.
it.
And I made my
Yay,
dream come
mom.
true. And then it led me into what I do now, and that's
Right.
helping people in their lives and speaking around the world. And it wouldn't have happened without that support, and without
Mm-hmm.
her not caring how she was raising her kids opposed to other people's opinions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Exactly.
that's that's something that I really appreciate about you and other parents that do that, because it allows the opportunity for children to get to a point of things that live in their lives to where they never imagined. Where most people, I think, fail in life is by being suppressed either by their parents, their own fear,
Mm-hmm.
society. And it seems like it's so like cliche. I keep using that word because I just think a lot of these things are, unless you really you understand the meaning of them. But like to be able to go off against the grain and do your own thing, like
Yes.
it just can bring so much value to life. And for me, it literally and figuratively saved my life. And that's why
Yes.
I'm really passionate about it. And now I'm really curious about that perspective as a mother, like how you raised your children, continue to raise your children, and how maybe that's evolved. Does that conflict with like your perspective of maybe ever thinking about being a mother one day, or when you were faced with actually being a mother for the first time? Like has that perspective shifted in terms of how you show up, and how does that actually I guess, conflict with maybe how mainstream thinking should say you should raise your kids?
Oh yeah, I think I definitely conflict with mainstream because I've always been someone that's told other mothers, like, listen, it's your child. It's not anybody else's child. So a lot of times, like when I'm working in the restaurants or the bars, I'll see pregnant women and I'll give them like a couple little tidbits and I'll try to put that little seed in their head. I'm like, listen, there's a lot of books, there's a lot of moms, there's a lot of blogs. People are going to judge everything you do. It's your child. If you want to be on a schedule, be on a schedule. If you want to be out and go around and not have a kid on a schedule, whatever works for your lifestyle is what you have to decide as a parent, because that's what's going to make you happy with it. And for me, my mom was just such a one to let us be ourselves. So I think I raised my son the way my mom raised me, and I was lucky to have a great role model because I was a challenging kid. I was a good kid, but I mean, I was just like, I had crazy ideas and I was just always just testing the waters, and I had a lot of thoughts, and I'd come back with all these ideas and she'd be like, oh my God, yep, you're right. Cause I'd be like, well, I don't want to lie to you, but I want to drink. Will you let me drink? And she goes, no, like then I have to lie. And I was like, Jesus Christ, why do you do this? Because I just, I was just like one of those kids. I just had like this way of doing things. So for me as a mom, I just decided that I was going to just kind of like enjoy the ride with my son. And I had to kind of check my own wants, because a lot of parents, they have their own vision. They want their kid to be this idea that they have. And that's the biggest thing that I think parents have to do, is just let go of their vision of what they expected their child to be and let their child be who they want to be. And I think my son really wasn't a big communicator till more recently. He's really found his voice, and it's been really cool because now I'd be like, he's like, you're a lot, because I talk fast and he's talking slower talker. So I'm like, okay. So he's good at checking me sometimes. And it's been really cool because now I'm learning to kind of pull back and like let him be him, because he's older now. So now I'm kind of like, okay, he's got his voice, he's got his opinion. And an example, like he made a really cool Halloween costume and he went really big on TikTok. Like he got like 3 million views, and I was like, holy shit.
Oh, shit.
And I was like, this is so cool. And I was like, you gotta make another video. He was like, relax, because he just takes his time. And he's just like, whatever. And I was like, and he just doesn't give, like, you think I don't give a shit. He really does. He just does his own thing. Like people talk shit about the costume and he's like, social media, what are you going to do? That's just people. He just, he's very good at like not worrying about what other people think, which I love because he's such a free thinker. And he just does what works for him. He wears a fedora, he makes a costume. And like the other day, he's like, let's go to Boston in my costume and like just entertain people for the day. I'm like, all right. So we got into Boston. There was nobody out because everything shut down, but the people that did see him loved it. They came out, took pictures with them, and it entertained the people that are in empty stores right now. So we had a really fun time. So he's kind of fun for me because he reignites that childhood in me and that desire to really go back after everything full force. So he's kind of been like a nice little gift from myself, because we're kind of on this little cool journey together right now.
Yeah, I love that. I think that what comes to mind is like majority of my BMX career was like, oh, when are you gonna get a real job? I was like, oh, I pay my bills.
Yeah.
I make as much as you make and
Yeah.
maybe more. How is this not a real job?
Right.
And I think what you're doing with your son is so important because it's evolving his creativity rather than people being suppressed. And I can't emphasize that enough, because for me it was like having that freedom to explore my creativity, to explore my dreams, and to think outside the box. It led me to being able to think for myself and to develop skills and talents that I didn't know I had. And had I been suppressed because my parents had a different vision for me, thankfully they had the vision that you share. It's just like, well, yeah, whatever your vision is, like, let's do it.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have it wouldn't have allowed me to experience the things I've experienced, see the world, and just so many opportunities. And now with social media and your son just being like, chill, let me do it on my own.
Yeah,
like seems like a creative thinker, and like I think that's everything. And that could be the difference of someone really enjoying their life or being resentful towards life in general.
Yeah, I think a lot of people wind up on this path getting coaches and going to therapy in their older years because they're trying to refine that person in them, or reignite that passion that got silenced.
Yeah.
I forget what I saw. There was it's a TED talk or something like that, and somebody said that like everybody's born a genius, but then the way that we train children to no, it actually like makes it go down. So like their passions and the way they can do so many things and they're so creative, it gets silenced and pushed down. And it's kind of fascinating when you really think about it. And it's not that we do it intentionally. You know, we do it because we're worried about them getting hurt, or we do it because, you know, all our friends' kids are doing something. And as a mom, you want to go to the playground and you want the moms to talk to you. So you want to sign your kid up for soccer so that you have something to do on Sunday morning. It's not a bad thing. It's just human nature. And I think in general, we want to be liked, right? We want to be part of the clique. We want to be part of the, you know, we want to fit in. And I think that's just a human nature. And for me, I feel like sometimes I've learned that when you try to fit in, then you have to kind of do all the things that they do. And then I'm like, oh God, that's so much work. It's almost like putting on a fucking mask. I just don't have the energy to put all that in, because then it just kind of like pulls away from me a little bit, you know, when I have to like, you know, I don't know how to explain it. That's why I think I'm struggling with 2020 a little bit. I have my own gut instinct, and I have my own ideas of what I think is right or wrong, or what I feel is what I should and shouldn't be doing. And so sometimes when like there's a group thought that everybody has to do a certain thing, it might be against what I kind of agree with. And I have to kind of like eat it like, oh, this is what I want to do, you know? So it's kind of like, it's kind of hard sometimes.
Yeah, but I see you out there, you know, you're doing it, and like it's very clear. I see that just from afar, from what you put out on social media and just the things you've shared today. So it's it actually segues nice into one of the last topics I wanted to bring up with you, is like your perspective on like theory versus application, because it's easy to talk about things. And a lot of the things we've talked about, what really helped me resonate, or what resonated well with me with Gary Vee, was me feeling like, oh, like someone gets me, because like the whole school thing and like thinking for yourself and doing and like all these things, I was like, school just never felt good, and I was never like good at it. Like I did enough to get by because that was the rules with my mom if I wanted to go riding and compete and travel. But I just didn't feel right, and I was considered, you know, dumb or like stupid because of it. And then now, you know, I'm doing what I do today, and I'm very happy, and I'm, you know, able to grow, and I've seen that. But when it comes to like having thoughts and having like these perspectives and sharing them, how do you see that as compared to like, you know, acting? Like, because like I did a video about this actually, because like there's mentors and there's coaches, and there's all these coaches selling programs, and it's like, but many of them haven't done what they're teaching. In my mind, I'm like, that's like, a mentor can coach, but a mentor to me is someone that's actually done what I want to do and can help me. And that's what I pride myself on being able to help people with, is like, I'm not just like a life coach or a health coach or like business coach, like whatever. I was like, I'm helping give you a roadmap that led me to my success, and it may not work exactly that way for you, but we'll navigate. Like I'm a tour guide or GPS.
Yes,
but I've done it. I've lived it. I'm a walking testimonial of my health learnings that I'm sharing, and then all the other things. So, you know, what comes to mind in terms of theory versus application?
I love that you said that, because so many people keep reaching out to me. I was like, Kristin, you're a coach. Like, why aren't you coaching? I'm like, I know, but I have a fucking thing with that word. Like, because I see so many people that like have these programs, and I'm kind of like, God, man, like, I don't know how to like, I'm trying to like understand how to kind of open up the dialogue, and like, because I just want to help people, and I just want to help people be them. So for me, what I think theory and application, for me, I get caught up sometimes on how to kind of make this, how to take things into action in a way. So for me, before, when I knew I wanted to give these messages out to the world and I wanted to help impact people, I really wasn't sure where to get started. And that's where comedy came in. So for me, I was like, okay, I want to speak. And then it was like, well, you're a bartender. What are you going to speak about? And nobody like took me serious. I was like, all right, I'll just grab a fucking microphone and I'll do comedy. That's a good way. So then now I'm speaking about life. Does that help? And my whole thing was, I'm not, I might not be a doctor or a PhD, but I feel like I'm pretty good at living life. And I'm pretty good at being happy. And I think that's what most people want to learn how to do, is live life and be happy. So I always say I'm kind of like, not a PhD or RLD, a real life degree. So kind of like, that's kind of the journey I want to help people on. I want to bring authenticity. I want to bring simplicity. I want to just be happy, just living your life your way. I want to put that into practicality for other people. So that's the roadmap I want to try to take people on. And so that's what I've been kind of trying to play with right now. I'm kind of like looking at the world and how many people had their lives completely disrupted this year. I'm like, a lot of people are going to need a new roadmap. A lot of people are going to need a whole new way to think, or a whole new way to push themselves forward, because they're restarting. So that's kind of what I think, how to go into practicality is where I think a lot of people get stuck, you know? And that's what I think, it's easy to have ideas, because I have a lot of ideas. And that's what I've been really learning and getting better at this year, is taking a lot of these ideas and starting them small and just kind of building upon them. So the way I kind of look at how I become more proactive is I've become very patient. It's so funny, because there wasn't my skill set. I am not my son will tell you, I am not patient, but when I started this journey in April after Gary doing the show, everyone's like, are you monetized? Are you monetized? And everyone's putting all this pressure on me to like have it be a business. And I was like, I'm kind of cool. I'm just chilling right now. I'm having some cool conversations. I'm kind of all right with it taking its time. And now I'm kind of like, wow, there's more I want to do. So now I'm kind of like, all right, let's build it slowly. Let's put another brick down and see how people respond. And then let's add this layer and let's add that layer. Let's kind of see where the journey goes. So now I'm kind of enjoying the process, and I'm kind of like letting the path kind of take me on it a little bit. So that's how I've been getting more active.
Yeah.
Did I answer the question?
No, you did for sure. And that's I feel like I'm biased with the questions I'm asking because I agree, but I think it's really important because there's a difference between thinking of something and like actually getting out and doing it. And for so long, I put so many restrictions on my ability to succeed at wanting to help people and to get to where I am today and where I plan to go in the future is because I was like, well, I'm a high school dropout. You know, I'm a former professional athlete, but like I'm not an expert in anything. And it's like people had to like continue to remind me like, you're an expert on living your life. Like you've done things. And I've talked to PhDs and well-known researchers and doctors and CEOs. They're like, no, like we need more people like you that don't have those credentials, but actually have lived it, have not just taught theory. Because anyone can learn something from a book or a program or a video and then go and, regurgitate it. But like how many people, and this is where my mentor versus coaching came in, is like how many people have actually walked in your shoes and got to where you want to go, even if it's just one step to where you want to get to. And so like, that's what I see in both of us is like, we're speaking our truth into existence by not only sharing it, but by walking our talk, taking action. And that's something I really see profoundly in you. And I'm excited to have this conversation because it's my journey. My mission on my journey is to connect with more people like yourself to share these stories because not everyone has the perfect background of, being in a great, family relationship and going to school and getting this job and all this. Like you're doing a lot of things and like you're changing your lane, so to speak. And then this year has been a really interesting wake up and you've had to innovate how you live your truth and how you live your life. And that's something that I really appreciate about you and many other people that do that.
I appreciate that. And that's one of the things I think you totally hit the nail on the head what you just said, because that's one of the reasons I love having real conversation with everyday people, because a lot of people that I talk to that have speakers that come to their business, I'm like, okay, that's great. Maybe that person had an amazing story, but the person in the audience might have a mother that has cancer. Like that's great that you're an Olympian, but they're not going to be Olympian. So the reason that I thought if I could use humor and real life stories to inspire people, that could really help people because it really changes their life. Right? Because it's connectable. And the reason I think people connect to me when they sit across me from the bar, I'm not a PhD, but I go right to the gut. I'm like, boom, right to the jugular, because I'm not going to say, how did that make you feel? How did that make you feel? Yeah, I'm just like, what happened? So why are you going to do that? How can you fix that? Why are you going to keep doing that? You know what I mean? It's very clear. And they go, oh, Kristin, you're right. Just like, boom, I hit them so hard. They're like, you're right. I just got so much out of that in 5 minutes with you because I don't, take, you know what I mean? I get right to it. Like, let's get deep. Let's get in there. Yeah. And it kind of makes people be like, shit, you're right. That is a simple thing. Like, I'm picking a shitty guy. What do you think it's going to change? If he's a shitty guy, he's a shitty guy. Yep. Relationships is something that I find fascinating because I'll watch people in a bad one and you're like, it's not the right person for you. It's like, or if the boundary, like, and a lot of women, they want to blame or men, they want to blame the person or blame the situation. It's like, well, a lot of times it's because you're allowing the situation to go on. You have to kind of say, this is the boundary. I'm not going to take this shit. And they'll either get to the point or you got to let them go. It's really that simple. I just think people need to pull the Band-Aids once in a while.
Yeah, and one of my favorite quotes, I have a lot of favorite quotes, but one of my top favorite quotes is, what we tolerate, we accept.
Yes.
And I think when you're in the shit so much that you can't see that you're just tolerating and tolerating things that go against your beliefs and your core values, it takes something so blunt like, hey, wake the fuck up. Like, this is what's happening, for you to be like, oh shit, other people can see it, or they help you see it for the first time. Right. And that's something I really appreciate about the New England, personality, that when I moved to North Carolina, I got called out about, like, dude, you're so blunt, and I still am. It's just like, it's like a superpower because it allows me to not live in the fluff and like this theory of like, life can get better if I just think about it. It's like, no, like I need to be called out. Like I love tough love. That's what's helped me so much. And when I work with clients, our onboarding call, it's a process I go through, but I let them know, like, you're not going to like me all the time.
Right.
But what I have to share usually is going to be what you need to hear. And I'm confident saying that because I have your best interest. Like, I am looking out for you and I love you and I want you to win. And when you're comfortable and I see that you're not doing the work, I'm going to fucking call you out,
Yeah. They
So
need
that,
it.
yeah, exactly.
Accountability. Yeah.
You need that tension. And
Mm-hmm.
for have someone hold you accountable and create that tension is the difference with someone getting the fuck out of their way and living the
Yes.
life they want rather than thinking, oh, why me? Or that's got
Yeah.
to be sweet on top of the comparison with social media and just the perspective that's not there of like, oh, that person's winning. Why can't I win? Well, what do you think that person did
Yeah.
to get
What
to
did
that
you do?
point?
What did you do towards it? Yeah. You sit
And
home.
yeah, and what are you doing now? Are you
Right.
tolerating this
Mm-hmm.
or are you
Yeah.
trying to be proactive about it and change it?
I think that's another thing too, with two things about the bluntness of Bostonians. You're so right. I had this kid at my bar one time and he kept complaining about his girlfriend. And he told me like the scenario. I'm like, oh, she's sleeping with the other guy at her school. And he's like, oh, you're crazy. No, she's not. And he got so mad at me, right? And then he came in like a month later and goes, she was sleeping with him. Like, I told you that. Like, I'm not trying to be mean, but like sometimes when people tell me a scenario, or I watch something, I know because I've been listening to people for years. I observe people all night long. It's like, when you watch people, like I can say, oh my God, don't give this girl another drink. She's going to start crying. And the kid will look at me like, what are you talking about? He'll turn around, she'll be sobbing. I'm like, you just know people when you serve them alcohol for years, you just learn a lot about people because they're at their vulnerable state. They let everything out when they're drinking. They let their guard down. They have real conversation. It's like, that's the real conversation, not the fake conversation you give your therapist. When you sit in front of me, you give me the real shit, right? That's why I can get to the real point. And so that's what I think is really funny about the bluntness that you were saying. And then there's something else you just said in that last comment that I totally forgot the point that I was going to say about calling people out and accountability. Oh, people don't want to do the work, Josh. They say they do, but I've watched so many people this year. They start off with something and like they're full force, and then like it doesn't build quickly. I mean, my numbers have gone down. I've lost so many followers since when I first got on with Gary. And I'm like, it is what it is. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. And I tell everybody that. I'm like, listen, not everybody's going to love me. And I know you have to put so much content up, but I'm like, I'm not going to overwhelm myself and put content up just to put it out. I'm going to put it out when it feels right to me. You know what I mean? And this past month, I didn't put out as much as I normally do because I was working 2 jobs. My job got closed. I was kind of going through a lot of things in my own mind. I was trying to process my own feelings. And I was like, you know what? I'll put it out. I'll get back on it. But I was working at 6:30 in the morning, then going into work till 11 o'clock at night and back around. And I was all over the place. And I was like, okay, I got to get my head straightened out. And like, I have a podcast coming out. It got delayed. But I'm not going to beat myself up about it because I'll put it out when it feels right to me. And then when it goes out, we'll roll with it. And so that's what I think people have to be conscious of. It doesn't have to be right this minute. It doesn't have to be, oh, go, 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 go. If you need to take a breather, take a breather. The project will be there. And if you do it when you're in the right frame of mind, it's going to come out so much better than if you just pushed it to put it out because you want to say you got it done.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's the difference of just auditing, what kind of energy and perspective are you putting into this action? And are you forcing it because you're insecure and you're afraid? Or are you doing it because you feel creative, inspired, and you're going to put out your best work? Because I mean, it could be numbers over quality. It could be, but I truly believe that like my best work that resonates and hits, that fulfills my mission, is when I feel good about being creative and inspired to share a message. And 99% of the content I put out is something I'm either actively working through or, in the recent past resolved or learned. And I just want to share that with other people.
Yep.
So I totally agree with that. And that's the thing that life happens. We can't control what happens in our lives. We can only control how we think, how we feel, and how we behave. And if you got a bunch of stuff going on, especially this year, like you have to be realistic and understand like what's important to you. Because if putting social media content out that you're not getting paid to do, but it's towards a larger vision, if that's not paying your bills and you have to pay your bills, then you have to be focused on that and get that done. So that way you do have the opportunity to post on social media. Because I mean, let's be real, if you're not, making money and have a place to live and you're on the street, you're not really create anything.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's what I think. I think people just have to be a little bit more. And I think there's so much pressure. Like I remember when I was on with Gary, he's like, oh, do 3 TikToks a day, go live everywhere. And I was like,
I remember listening to that.
And I was like, 3 TikToks a day.
I was getting overwhelmed listening for you.
Yeah. I was like, and then I felt kind of guilty, but I was like, listen, I couldn't really get my groove with TikTok. I'll get on there again eventually. But like for me, I was like, I got to find the way my voice works here. I couldn't get the click with it. Like there's some people that get on there, like they're so good with like, oh, hey, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, good for them. I have a comedian friend who's really blown up on there since I had him on my show a couple months ago. And I'm like, good for him. He's killing it on the TikTok game. And I'll get back on there, but I'm not going to beat myself up over it. It didn't feel right to me. I do like to dance. I like old school, so like I'm kind of thinking I'm gonna start bringing some old school music out because I don't like the newer hip hop. I'm old school, so I'm gonna stop bringing out some of my older shit. So I think I might do something fun like that. But I'm like, when I get to it, I get to it. I'm not gonna say, oh, I'm not gonna feel like a failure because I didn't do that, you know, because you have to do what works for you. The content you put out has to be what works for you, and I don't care if it goes viral or not. If it's not what I want to be my voice, then what was the point of going viral? Because then like you're going to be chasing that. So I think a lot of people they put too much pressure on themselves with what they're putting out. And I just got to put out what feels right to you and try to connect to the people that are going to vibe with you, and then keep rolling with that. And I think that's what's going to make you happier, and that's what's going to make the content creation more fun for yourself, you know,
100%. Yeah. No, I
instead of trying
definitely
to do
agree.
something else. Yeah.
Yeah, just be real, just be yourself, and it'll evolve. But yeah, you got to focus on what's important in the moment, not trying to chase other people and be them,
Right.
you know. And I just noticed, I mean, for 10 minutes, I've been noticing I've been slowly backing up because I put for those that are watching, I put one of the blinds down,
Yeah.
but not the other one. The sun, you know, has been
So
moving,
I was
and I'm
like,
like, oh shit. People listening won't care, but
yeah.
yeah, no, I totally agree. And again, I can't thank you enough for coming on and for having me on your show. What was it, like a
Yeah.
month or two ago?
Yeah.
You know, it's been a pleasure, and I'm really looking forward to staying connected and seeing. Like, I love your content. Whenever I catch it, it's just, I mean,
Yeah.
I just really vibe with it. And you know, before we wrap up, I just want to see.
Yeah.
I know we were speaking before we recorded about some things, but I just kind of want to check in and just see. Like, I know you're full of so many like nuggets of wisdom, and like I really
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing. But like, is there anything on your mind, on your heart, that's just like one thing that you want people to leave with that has been profound for you in your life, whether it's been the whole time you've been alive and conscious, or
Yeah.
just this recent year?
I just think that people have their own superpowers, and they just have to stop doubting themselves. I think we all have a gut instinct, and I think if you really tap into listening to it, you'll know what you're supposed to do. You have to just kind of hone in on it. I'm such a big believer of it, and I think so many people will go to other people to ask their opinion on something when their gut is already screaming, do this, do this. And I think if they stopped asking other people and just ask their own gut, they would probably save themselves so much time and aggravation. And I don't think it's always easy to listen to it, but the more you start to, it'll be so loud that you won't be able to ignore it. That is probably like my greatest lesson for people, because I think your gut instinct is a superpower that so many people ignore.
I love it, and that resonates so much with me. That's like what I've been trying to trust more and more this year, and in the last few months, I've been getting better at it. It's just like acknowledging that connection and like that
Yeah.
feeling when it comes up, and then just acting on it and trusting it.
Yeah.
Because I've been in so many situations where I ignored it. It either ended up with me with a broken ankle, a toxic relationship, or a bad
Yes.
business deal. And I was like, I had to learn the hard way. But I guess that's been
I
the
have
story of
too,
my past
believe
life.
me.
So it's all good now. But no, I love that.
No, that's funny because like I get vibes sometimes, and like my vibes are normally right. And like there's been so many times that I'll tell my husband something. He's like, no, you're crazy. And then he's like, yeah, you were right. I'm like, no shit, my alarm was going blah blah. You know, so sometimes he has to learn. He's one that sometimes isn't good at listening to my gut instinct because it's not his. But my gut will be like, this is not good. I know this is not going to work out this way. And so we've been through the journey together. So we've had a couple hard experiences through our own life. And it's kind of built our strength together a little bit, because when the shit hits the fan, you can either blame each other, or you can kind of like connect and be like, all right, well, this is what we've been dealt. We're going to have to just push forward. So like, that's what we've kind of learned as a team. So it's been every fall in the face or every loss teaches you a lesson, and either you learn from it or you don't. And that's really what people have to decide. So you can take the knockdowns and the kicks to the gut, and you can say, oh, poor me, and I'm just going to lay here and feel bad for myself. Or you can lick your wounds, get up, and just hit it back. And that's what I think people have to start doing a little bit more. Stop pushing back a little bit. You'll be okay.
Yeah, I
One
love
foot in front of the
that.
other.
I love that, and I mean I resonate with that so much too, because like BMX taught me that, but from a
Yeah,
painful
you think?
perspective of broken bones and concussions. It's like you hit the
Right.
ground, it hurts. And I think if people trusted their intuition and their gut and acted more on the thoughts that they have and the vision they want and what they want to be true rather than thinking about it, the fear like that is not going to be as bad as breaking a bone, getting a concussion. And like that's been my experience to learn what you just said so
Yeah.
vividly. And I think if people really understood, like there's no amount of pain. I mean, there's a slight chance if
Yeah.
you make a stupid decision, you get hit by a truck, it's like
Right.
that, it's going to hurt. But
Yeah.
like for the most part, if you're being conscious and you're listening to your gut, you're not going to get severely hurt or injured.
Yeah.
It may suck mentally, you may feel bad emotionally, but you're going to be okay and you can
Yeah.
learn from it.
Yeah, failure and fear. Like, don't run from it. Fucking bring it on. Because everything that the reason I'm so passionate and the reason I'm so positive and the reason I'm so grateful, it's not because my life's been a fucking bowl of cherries. It's been a fucking, pitfalls and ups and downs. And but that's great because it's given me. I've learned something from every experience, and it's given me a little bit more of the thick skin that I need in the armor to kind of keep pushing. So then when it comes at you again, you're like, oh, I know what to do here. All right. And then even when you have your bad day, you're like, come on, you know what to do. Get up. Like it's not going to last forever. So that's what I try to say to people. Like, there's a quote I love. It says something like, life is beautiful and awful, then beautiful again. And it's like in between, it's ugly and sad. And I think that's what people have to realize. Life isn't, all perfect. It's a lot of messy shit. And there's a lot of good. There's a lot of good and there's a lot of bad. And the more that you start understanding that there's ugly and there's bad and there's hard, it's going to make you appreciate the good stuff so much better. And then you will stop feeling, you know what I mean? Like everyone's just like, oh my God, this is so mean. This is so tough. Yeah, that's life. Whoever told you it was easy lied to you, man. It's just like, God, just dig in a little bit. Life is hard. That's okay. And that's what makes it interesting. Because if it's just all easy, then when things like this happen, now what are you going to do? If your life's been like rainbows the whole way. That's why I think so many people are struggling right now. Because we're like, you're awesome, you're great. No, this isn't mean. And it's like, now they're like, whoa, what the hell's going on? So you got to prepare people for the real world, and I think they'd be a lot better off. That's why I like reality.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think it's a great place to leave this conversation with, and we can pick up from there another time. And I can't thank you enough for sharing your truth, your time. I know time is one of our, biggest, commodities, if that's the right word. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I greatly appreciate you, and I'm looking forward to speaking again. And thank you so much.
All right. Thanks so much, Josh. Have a good day.
You too.